left to coach women's. And yeah, like was said, we won a few gold medals in the first season, and yeah, we're having a couple of good seasons for the moment. So that's me. All right. Okay, so for me, it's why play fast. So if you watch volleyball on a high level around the world, really the game is getting faster and faster. You increase the speed of the game, and it means a decreased amount of blockers, which for me goes into the creating space concept. Less blockers means a higher kill percentage, which is really what we want. So if you can see on the graph here on the right, this is our season currently. We've played, I believe, 9 or 10 games. So the first column is the X5 or the go. This is a fast ball to position 4. It's a fast ball to position 4. And you see if we play against a 2-player block, we hit at 18% efficiency. So efficiency is the kills and minus the blocks and the errors as well, okay? And if we play against a 1 block, a single block, or an open block, so there's a hole in the block, then we hit at 39% efficiency, which is just, we say night and day, okay? You can see a similar thing for the red in the X6, so the quick ball behind. We play against a 2-player block, we hit 18% efficiency, and we play against a 1-player block or a seam block, and we hit 36% efficiency. So less blockers means a higher kill percentage, and if you increase the speed of the game, generally you have less blockers. I know that is not always true in a couple of scenarios, of course. Maybe the opposition releases directly to the outside and you play against 2 blockers, but generally in a normal game, higher speed, more space, better kill efficiency. Something that we will talk about later is that you don't need a good swing. When you play fast, the options open to you a little bit more, or a lot more actually, with your range. So if you look around the world, there are a lot of innovative players that are coming up with solutions to easily score from fast play without a good swing. And this we call creating range. Okay. Yeah. Somebody just tell me if I'm speaking too fast. I will try to keep it nice and slow. Okay. All right.
It's
so
perfectly.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So teaching speed. Okay. So the first thing that I believe everyone needs to understand straight away is that to hit a fast ball, it's a skill in itself. It's like anything else in volleyball, passing or attacking a high ball. They're separate skills and they need to be taught separately. And I find I always have conversations. Also, I've coached in the past junior talent team here in Switzerland. And I've always had conversations about when we should teach speed to players. And in my mind, if the future of the game is fast, then we should teach it early so that players have it in their toolbox. I really think once a girl, for example, or a guy reaches 17, 18, and maybe they take the step to the next level and they go into a team that wants to play fast, and they haven't learned that skill, they're quite far behind. It doesn't mean we don't teach how to hit a high ball, how to hit a medium ball, how to swing well, but I think it's something that's in the toolbox and it needs to be taught. Another really important point is that badly executed speed, it can be frustrating. So, I mean, we all know we try to play a fast game and the setter sets over the head or into the net and it looks bad, and it can look really bad. That's why I believe it's important to have a plan. And this lack of early success. So if early on we are not successful immediately, okay, we arrive to the gym and we say we want to play fast, and boom, it's a disaster. Coaches often go backwards and they go back to slow play because they want to win now. Okay. For me, the key is patience, because this is something that is very valuable, but is a skill and you cannot expect it to work immediately. It's something you have to teach, and you have to teach it with a good plan. All right. So attackers, if we're teaching speed, like I said, we have a systematic approach to teaching attackers, and 2 keys for me. One is the timing, obviously, okay, between the setter and the hitter. And the other one is that we must play inside the court. We play an inside game, so inside the antenna. When we're playing fast, we are trying to beat blockers and we are trying to use blockers. So we have to be inside the court a little bit, which is really important when we talk about the steps later. Okay, a really big key for the timing is which step the attacker is on when the setter had the ball in their hands. I will show you pictures and videos of this really soon. So if it's not clear as I'm speaking, it's coming in a moment. But if we have a 4-step attack approach, we would want to be on our second step when the setter has the ball in their hands. This would be for a right-hander, it would be on their left foot. So some people call it left foot timing, some people call it second step. I keep it on the steps since we have left and right hitters, left and right-handed hitters. All right, so we look around and we see if we play to position 4, a normal ball, a second step ball is quite a common fast speed. Coming off the second step, going on to the third step, I would call a hard second, okay? And there are some teams that are playing a third step, and this is extremely, extremely fast. All right. So for me, we're going to take a look at it in a moment, but this is just important. The timing when attacking is what step are you on when the setter has the ball in their hands. Okay. So we can see here, this is one of the fastest teams in the world, Conegliano. Okay. And we see here that all 3 of their attackers are on a hard second step. So they're going off their second step and coming on to their third step right now. Okay, super fast. All right, and let's take a look. Okay, I hope that video comes through well, but really, 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 really fast ball here. Okay, as they're on, all the attackers are on their hard second step when Voloj has the ball in her hands. Okay, this in my mind is the fastest team in Europe, but it's a good example. Okay, all right. So some keys for this 4-step approach. Okay, it should be slow to fast so we can build momentum. All right, so the first 2 steps are slow and the last 2 are quite explosive. A really big key is the second step is near the 3-meter line, and this allows feet to ball. Okay, we're going to see why that's important in a moment. The third step, the step close, should be inside the court. Like we spoke about earlier, we want to play an inside game so that we can keep the full range available at all times. All right. And we are step close inside the court. This allows us to hit all angles with power, and we can adjust to sets. And which is really important, which we talk about later, is it helps the setter judge the set. So it's so important for hitters to really follow these rules. Okay. Last one is feet parallel to jump. This is really not much to do with speed, but more to do, in my mind, with biomechanics, the health of the knee, and yeah, being able to jump well. But I thought I'd put it in there because I find it to be very important. All right, here we're going to see a video of Bossetti. Okay, quite a small outside hitter who they play very fast with in Italy. Yeah, and we'll talk you through it. Okay. All right. So here we see that the ball is in the setter's hands. She's on her second step on her left foot. And the second step is around the 3-meter line, which we talked about. Okay, her third step, her step close, it's in the court. Okay, she does a good job of this, and it allows her to have all the range and to hit this line attack. If she is outside the court and she has to jump inside, it's very difficult to use the full range. Okay, ball in setter's hands, second step. You see she's also around the 3-meter line, still there. And her third step, her step close, is inside the court. This is such a big key, that we are inside the court when we jump. All right. So I'm going to show you with pictures as well. This is a men's game because I've coached both men and women, and this is an extremely gender neutral concept to be inside the court and to where our steps should be. So we see it in pics. The second step is near the 3-meter line here. This is going to vary a little bit for players depending on how tall they are, how long their legs are, but it's near around the 3-meter line. Okay, we see the step close. So Juan Torrena here, his third step is inside the court. Okay, I'm going to really make a big point of this because it is so important. And in my opinion, it's a really big issue in women's volleyball, jumping outside of the court. And then having to jump forward or jump into the ball. It really takes, I believe, takes away the range that you have and the options that you have. And I see it a lot, especially around the mid-level where I coach and girls coming in. Okay, so here is a player that I fight with quite often about getting her feet in the court. So this first ball, she does a great job. Okay, we see her third step is into the court and she's able to reach up, extend, and boom, throw the ball down. Okay, she has all her options available. If she was outside the court, this wouldn't be possible, like here. Okay, watch in slow motion. Okay, she shuffles, fine. All right, now she needs to take a bigger step. She's outside the court, and here it's going to be hard for her to turn the ball line. Okay, she hits cross, bam, we get a kill block. All right, let's watch that again. All right, so we see she's inside the court with her step close, full range available. Okay, she's able to extend up, power tip the ball, which we will take a look at later. And here we are with our step close outside of the court. Like I said, it's a common problem, and a lot of players, I mean, they're quite successful at jumping outside of the court, but if we watch a lot of high-level volleyball now, the players, the men and the women with the best range, they're really stepping inside of the court, and I think it is extremely important. Okay. All right. Our feet parallel to jump. Like I said before, if they're not parallel like this, and they're like this, then our knees also come in. It's dangerous for the knees. It's really tough to get a full jump. And it's not something we want to do over and over and over. And if we're volleyball players, we're jumping 100 times a day. So we want to jump with good biomechanics. This has less to do with speed, but I believe it's a really important key. Okay. All right. So we move on to teaching speed with the setters. Okay. This is really quite interesting for me. I've done a lot of work on this and I've experimented a lot on how I speak to the setters and things we talk about. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So the first thing is the eye test, which means you just are watching the speed of the ball yourself. If you want to run a fast offense, of course, mostly in system, the ball should be flat and it shouldn't have a lot of loop. Okay, so I call this the eye test. Okay, now for me, this is really the only thing I use. In the past, when I first started sort of understanding how fast I wanted to go and what the limits were, I was timing the sets. I was timing the sets from when the set came in the setter's hands and to the hitter when they hit it. I took a look at some other high-level teams and I discovered that a go ball, so a ball to position 4, if it's 0.8 seconds, it's just stupidly, ridiculously fast. Quite a common speed that is really fast and still quite flat is 0.9 seconds. And this, of course, changes really a lot if you're shifted to 4, like if the set is running to 4 and then they set from there, the ball is shorter, so the time is less. If it's a ball behind, it's a lot of things. I don't find it to be extremely important anymore for me to do every day, but I found it very interesting to see a little bit what the limit was. In my mind, it's similar to when we take the speed with a serve gun. Ultimately, do we care how hard it is? We care if they score, but it's nice to know how hard you can hit it, the serve, like, and still get it in. And I believe there's a similar theory for the setting here. So I don't measure the speed anymore, but sometimes I go back just to double check to see if I'm still correct in my timing and that. And I kept this graph to the right here just to make it really clear how important it is, okay, to create space. All right, I hope that made sense. Okay, I put some videos of some sets, okay, just so you can see what I'm talking about with the speed. So This is 0.88 seconds from setter's hands to hitter's contact. Really, I just use a stopwatch. Let's watch it again. But this is really, really fast, okay? All right. This was my men's team when I coached men's. Here you see he's moved a little bit to position 3, which makes it a shorter ball, but this is at 0.9 seconds. And we still see that the ball really doesn't have a lot of loop in it. Okay, it's still quite fast and we're still able to create space. Okay, and this is my current team now that I coach. And this is also 0.9 seconds. Okay, really quite fast. And for me, the main key is you see, poof, there's not a lot of loop. Okay, it's quite flat, but it still reaches the hitting window. All right, so yeah. Like I said, I don't think the timing is really necessary, but I find it interesting as a coach to be able to judge what is possible and to push a little bit the limits. All right. Okay, so teaching speed to the setters. This is more about feedback than it is about anything else. But there's 2 main things that I believe that a setter can manipulate in relation to speed. So if we're talking about how fast the ball is being set, we're talking about angle and we're talking about force. I'm not here talking about if the ball is on or off the net. This is a different thing, and this is actually quite easy to see for the setter to adjust. But if we want to work on the speed of the ball, it's angle and it's force. So the angle is the trajectory. If you set the ball, it's the angle that it's released. Okay, and the force is how much you push the ball, the force that the setter puts into the ball. As I have seen, wide and inside sets are often a function of the force applied to the ball. Okay, and the speed of the ball is a function of the angle of release, as well as the force you put. Of course, if you push the ball faster, it's going to get to its spot faster. The reason that I find this quite important to talk about is I like to keep simple feedback to the setters and I like to keep it understand. So when we say, we'll talk about it later, but high and low and stuff like this, it's tough. We want to have simple, actionable things that the setters, they can really think about. So I see a set and maybe it drops short, then we say, okay, more force. So the setter knows they have to put a little bit more force into that ball. And I try to keep it always at angle and force as the feedback that I am giving to them. Yeah, so angle is too high. The ball can be very, very slow. If we set a high angle, the ball can be slow. Or it's just going to fly over the head. If you have a high angle and you have a lot of force, and it's going to fly out of the universe. Okay, the angle is low. The ball is really, really fast. Maybe it's too low and it's too low over the net. Maybe the angle is good and there's not enough force, which means the ball would be quite short. So there's a lot of different things that can happen, but I find this to be a really simple way to talk to setters about speed. All right, I will show you a video. All right, so this is from a recent game from us. Okay. We set the angle way too high. Okay, our hitter's in the court. Her feet are really nice in the court. This is where we want her to be. And this is a common space that she runs. And it went over. Later in the game, exact same situation. Okay, we set the ball with the same force. So the force was perfect. And we lower the angle, the trajectory of release, and we get a perfect set. And boom, complete space and a beautiful play. I would like to watch that again. So angle too high, lots of force in the ball, ball's over the hitter's head. This is immediate feedback to the setter because we know that this girl right now, her feet are in the court. She is where we want her to be. I know it seems like it's quite far in, but this is how we run with her. We get immediate feedback and then we can fix the ball. Okay, we lower the angle, we keep the same force, beautiful speed, not a lot of loop, and we create a lot of space. I show you the angles here. I don't measure the angles of the set, so please nobody ask me the optimal angle of setting. I don't know it, but this is just an example from our last game, and this happens to us probably once every 4 or 5 games, even though we've run speed for quite a long time. Okay, and yeah, you can see that the decreased angle with the same force was really, really important. So I hope you can see how the angle affects speed, and yeah, how we can manipulate those two things. All right. Why? Okay, I believe in fixing the feedback loop. This is not, I didn't make this up myself. I took it from people smarter than me, but I think it's super important. Okay, we're in a practice, and we hear hitters say, okay, it's too high, it's too low, push the ball, like it's too wide. And really the question is, how does this help the setter? And are you always correct? When you're running a fast offense, the hitter must be, as we talked about before, on their second step. If they're not on their second step, they will be late. And then everything looks like it's too low. If they're not inside of the court, then they won't be able to reach a fast ball, and then everything looks like it's too short. Okay, so the first key is that the attacker must have a consistent approach, and that's why I put it as number one. Attackers must be on their second step around the 3 meter line, and they must step close inside the court. Otherwise, this whole feedback loop, it goes to the shit. Okay, so we want a consistent approach position from the attacker. And then the setter can see exactly what they need to adjust. Like we saw in the video before, the ball flew over her head. Okay, and it was very clear it was a problem of the angle. The setter goes, boop, it's a problem of the angle. I'm going to release it lower next time. Okay. Yeah, so, and now after 3 years, I'm getting to a point where my setters really understand if the ball drops short, probably it needs more force, probably. If the ball flew over the attacker, probably it needs a lower angle. And as long as my attackers are consistently in the court, then this is fixing the feedback loop instead of really all this ambiguous stuff that happens between setters and hitters. In a fast offense, I think this is a really, really huge key. All right, so now that we know how to teach speed into our attackers and setters, and I realize there's so many more things to talk about, but we are moving on. Two big concepts that I like to really push with the team is creating space and creating range. Okay, and how we do that in our fast offense. Okay, so the basic goal of our offense, or any offense that I'm going to work with, is to put the hitters in the best position to score by decreasing the number of blockers they're facing, which is creating space. If the setter can have the blocker have 1-on-1 or an open block, we have created space. Fantastic. Okay, and increasing the amount of range available to the attacker, which is creating range. For me, number one, I keep saying it, is getting feet in the court. This will help create range. And then there's a bunch of other things which we're going to talk about that we can learn to create range in a fast offense. I'm talking only about fast offense right now. And I'm sure I'll have some questions on it later, but no, we don't want to play fast in every single situation, but quite a lot of them. All right, so creating space is mostly the job of a setter. For the most part, I would say 90% of creating space has to do with what the setter is doing. Okay, as I said before, you increase the speed, you decrease the amount of blockers. There is a really nice study done on this by a friend of mine, which I cannot share because it's not my data, but you have to trust me that it's true. You increase the speed, the amount of blockers goes down, and therefore the kill efficiency goes up. But it's not everything. In certain teams and certain opponents, even that we face, for example, we might have the opposition, they run out and they sit 2 blockers against our outside hitters immediately. So it doesn't matter if we play fast, if we play high, if we dig the ball, or if we head it with our head, there's going to be 2 blockers there. And that is that in a lot of situations. And speed doesn't help there. Okay, so I know that it's not everything, but for the most part, in most situations, it is really important. Okay, so I like to use terms for plays. I say plays because nothing is fixed. I never believe in telling the setter that in this situation they must do this, in that situation they must do that. I think this is not the way for a setter to work. I want them to, for lack of better words, I want them to feel what's happening around them and to understand what could possibly be based on what happened before or based on maybe the scout. So we have some terms to try to keep things really clear and understood and have a common language. So it's based on what the opposition blocker does. And addition to that, the setter needs to think about setting up the play, which we'll talk about later. All right. So the first term that we talk about is isolation. So we will use an isolation against a team whose middles step towards our middle blocker's attack route. So basically, you run maybe a long gap. We call it a gap, but a long, quick, a shoot, okay, with the middle blocker. Their middle blocker steps there, and then you can set fast behind, and you isolate the attacker. Okay, so you set in the opposite direction when you run an isolate. So isolation plays, okay? Here is an example. We run close to the setter here, okay? And she stays with the setter, and we isolate our outside attacker. We know the middle stays with our middle, and we isolate our outside attacker. So she has a one-on-one. The middle stays with our middle. We isolate. Okay. So these are all examples. Watch again. These are all examples of when the middle runs tight to the setter in front, but this could also be tight to the setter behind. This ball, the S, C, what do you guys call it? And you can set outside. It could be a long gap and then setting behind, but it's called an isolation play. And you want to isolate the attackers. All right. Second kind of play that we might use is called an overload. All right, so we want to use overloads most often when we play a team whose middle blockers help against, whose pin blockers help against our middle. We want to overload a blocker, overload an area, overload the blocker, okay? This could be a gap, so the long quick, and then you set to position 4, the go over the top. It also could be the middle plus a BIC, a back row attack, a fast back row attack, so a middle pipe. We're going to take a look at all these examples, and something extra I want you to consider is running at different angles for extra overload. So you'll see in the video, I don't have any of my team. We haven't quite achieved it yet, but you'll see the men's team USA, the middle blocker runs at this angle to position 5. Okay, then their middle blocker needs to think, oh, I've got a block to position 5. And then the pipe comes flying on this angle. Okay, and we create space there as well. So not only do we overload a blocker, we also create space there, which is something, it's a very interesting concept. All right, let's take a look at these overloads. So here we see the position 2 blocker on their side ready to help on our middle, and boom, we have a complete overload play. We overloaded the position 2 blocker. Here, okay, we know that this top scorer, this girl in position 2 over there, all right, we know that she helps our middle a lot. So we run our middle anywhere near the setter, and we know, and we can create an overload on her. So we overloaded this girl. Okay, here I'm talking again. I'll just bring this back a little. All right, this is what I was talking about with the BIC. Okay, you can see here that he's run on an angle from position 5 to 5, okay, and the middle has to, we're overloading the middle blocker here. The middle has to choose, and bam, we run the pipe, the BIC, what you guys want to call it, over the top. Okay, same thing here. We're overloading again the middle blocker. Lots of choices to make in the middle. Okay, same thing. We're overloading the middle, and bam. This is run very well in high-level men's, and it's starting to be more common in the women's now. The middle BIC overload. All right. So there are some overload plays. Okay. Another concept that I like my setters to understand is creating space. No pin help. So pins are the pin blockers. They're the outside blocker. So they're the position 2 and the position 4 blocker. If we know that they do not help, which is quite common, at least in my league, that they do not help, say if the setter is back row in so rotation 1, 6, or 5, and we have a good pass in the middle of the court, and they do not help the middle, then we can run tight quicks, so quicks close to the setter, over and over and over and over. And there will be a one-on-one, just like this. So we know that they do not help. These blockers, position 2 and 4, they do not help. We have a one-on-one in the middle. You have a good middle blocker. You run her close to the setter. It's going to be pretty tough to play defense against. And we create space, but when we know with the no pin help play. All right. Okay, another small concept that sometimes we use is on the move. So this is when you set the middles on the move when the opposition middles stay and read. So the opponent middles, we've talked before about them following our middle blockers, and we can play an isolate play. Or, you know, if there's no other blockers, then we can play no pin help and run the tie quicks. Here, if you move, the setter moves a little bit and their middles stay in a read because they're disciplined middles and they don't want to run around with the, like the chicken with the head cut off. Okay. Then in this case, you are maybe shifted to 4 or to 2 a little bit, and you can set the middle on a tight quick there, which is a middle close to the setter. All right, let's take a look. So here we see she's reading and she's staying in the center, and then we run and we sprint to get past her, okay? Because we're on the move and we know that she stays in the center. Same here, she stays in the center, and so we run to space on the move. The setter is on the move, bam. Okay, this is what on the move means. All right, good. Okay, creating space. Okay, short or long string. So this is just another way to say short or long distance. So when we're measuring the sets, we say it's a normal ball, a normal string ball, or a short ball because we run forward. A shift to 4 is when we run forward. Or we run back to 2 and we set a long ball, which would be a long string ball, to position 4. So if the middles follow our setter, then we can play long string or long distance. Okay, so our setter runs to position 4. It's a good pass, it's on the net, but it's to position 4. And we know their middles follow our middles. Perfect. Oop, we play long distance. Okay, if the middles read and stay in the center, another option from on the move, okay, is to play short string or short distance. So we run to 4, okay, the setter runs to 4, she gets close to the outside hitter. We're playing a fast game. So that means, which we are not going to talk about today, but an extra bonus, that the hitter must speed up and we play even faster. Then we run to 4 and the middle stays in the center. Then we play a short string ball because it's going to be 1-on-1, 100%. She's not going to make it, because this ball that normally is 0.9 seconds turns into 0.5 seconds because it's much closer. Okay. Yeah, that's a note. Later, maybe we can talk about in the question time, the timing on the different balls, if they're long or short, but yes. All right, some other considerations that I don't have names for would be if the opposition, do they do something special against you? Maybe they release to a player, okay? So here we have an example. I keep examples from us just to know that it's not total baloney what I'm talking. Here, their middles step towards our outside hitter, okay? And we have complete space for our middle or our opposite, okay? And this is something that we talk about in the scout. We say, okay, we know that they're going to do this. So if you get this situation, they step to the outside, you can play the middle like this, or for example, she could also set the opposite there. And there's going to be 1 or no blocks. Creating space, creating space, creating space for your attackers. Really, really important. All right. So when I first start with any setter, I give them a set of questions when I give them the setter video. So I don't do this forever. This is more for them to learn to understand what to look at. So before we play a game, I send them a video, or we sit and watch a video of our attack versus their block. And if it's not our attack because we haven't played them yet, then it's another team similar to us. It doesn't really matter because most teams have really set blocking structures that they do, and most middles have really big tendencies on what they do. So I send these questions with a video, and the video is our 3 hitter rotations and our 2 hitter rotations in system, and they must answer these questions. In my mind, it's important for them to do it from the start, just to get an idea of what the opposition does and to have a bit of an understanding of what can I do today. Like I said, there's no rules. I don't go into a game saying you must do this and this and this and this, but this gives them like some, it gives them a help and like some confidence of what could be available in the game and what they could do. All right, so the questions, do the middles follow the setter? Okay, yes, beautiful. We play long distance. No, okay, we play short distance. like we talked about before. All right. Do the middles follow the middles? So our middles run that way, their middles go that way. Perfect. Yes. We can play isolate against this middle. We say, okay, number 10 from this team, she always follows our middles. We play isolation against her. Awesome. Okay, no. All right, we can play on the move, or we can play long quicks, which is maybe the gap or the shoot into space. Okay. Do the outsides help the middles? Yes. Overload until they don't. No. Okay, that means there's no pin help, and we can set tight quicks over and over and over. Okay. Are they in a bunch that we can exploit with speed? A bunch means the block that starts close together rather than out. Yes, then we can go fast to the pins. There's a possible overload available. If no, then that means there's lots of holes and a potential for no pin help that we can again run the middle tight to the setter. Okay. They must answer. Do they release? Do they take options? In men's, it's quite more common to take really options on a first tempo. Or do they release to certain attackers? We just need to know it. And can you tip? And when and where? And what space does this create for you? I find this really interesting because if you have a big setter or like an attacking setter and they take a block with them, then you can use that also as an overload play. Maybe you're jumping and the position 2, you're about to tip the ball, the position 2 is helping you. Sorry, the position 4 blocker on the other side is helping you, and you can set back row to your opposite, and they should have no block. We've overloaded that player. Or another way to think about it, which is creating space, which I love. If you're an offensive setter and you tip a lot, maybe you tip down to the middle of the court a lot, then you're going to see during the game or during the scout, their libero really stays waiting in the 3-meter line for me. Okay, so good. You tip once, you make her wait there, you bait her, she's waiting there, and then you can set the middle, and our middle knows that the libero is in the middle of the court and she can hit the deep corner. So these are little things like, if we could be the most intelligent people we can be in the middle of the game, we can start to think about all these ways that we can create space. Sounds a little complicated, but it's really more about generating a volleyball IQ and an understanding of the game more than anything else. It's not about rules, it's about increasing the volleyball IQ and the volleyball understanding. Okay. All right. So setting up the play. Okay. So some considerations that we need to think about. For me, ideally, I would like the setters to think, how do I create space during the game? What happened before and what might happen next? For example, we talked about before with the overloads. I hope we're keeping up. We establish the gap, so we run the long quick a lot, boom, boom, boom. Then their position 2 blocker helps, and we can play an overload. Bam, we have space down the line. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to show you now a video where we set up the play really well. Our setter did a really good job. This is our middle. We run her on a two-leg ball behind. Okay, and she can see after this, I'm going to give her all the credit. Sorry, I'm going to give her all the credit and say that she saw that this is what happened, that the middle moved there quite early. And then the next ball, which happened later in the set, we run the same play, the middle moved, and we have a one-on-one to the outside. So we set up the play really, really well. Okay. In this video, we're going to see the opposite. We did this play. Okay, it's one-on-one. Boom, we score. We did it again. Now their middle, you can see, moves a little bit. Ooh, okay, now she's there, but we still score. Then it's 23-24, a very key moment. Okay, we know in the last time we played them, the last time we played this ball, she moved already there. Okay, but we set her again anyway, and boom, we lose the set. Okay, so this is some examples of just some things that's I believe, like, when you really start to take control of the game, your understanding, you can really take advantage of creating space like this. Again, this is not hard and fast rules for the setters. I don't believe in this. It's a volleyball IQ. Okay, so creating space, it is not just the setter's job. It's mostly the setter's job, but it's not just the setter's job. Attackers can help a little bit as well. Some things you can do: run an inside out attack. So maybe you pass the ball inside and then you run directly from inside to out. very often the outside blocker is flying with you, and you create space on the line, or you create space with the hands. Okay. If you run a go to a rip, so a fast ball outside to a fast ball inside as an attacker, you hide the footwork well. You can come in, you can beat the block on the inside. That's creating space for yourself as well. Or drifts from the middle. This means you jump from one spot to another spot. I think you have to be quite an athletic middle to do this. I don't think it's available for everybody at every level, but it certainly is interesting about creating space. I have one example where we managed to do it. We run from a gap and we jump inside. So we see here, it looks like she also can run the gap, the shoot, but she jumps in and she beats the blocker on the inside. We are creating space as an attacker. All right. Okay, last thing that we're going to talk about, creating range. All right. So first thing, to be super clear, range means like all the options that you can attack. Okay. And we are talking specifically right now in a fast ball situation, implementing a fast offense. Okay. I want us to be able to attack horizontally. Can you hit line? Can you hit cross? Can you hit blah, blah, blah? I want us to think about vertical depth. So if you can hit line, great. Can you hit line here? Can you hit line here? Can you hit line here off the hand? So we change the vertical angle as well. And of course, I want us to keep working on this classic range all the time. Okay. But, and this is a big but, and hitting is important, spiking is important, but you don't need a good swing when we run a fast offense. This I've always believed, but maybe some of you guys know Mark Lebedew was on his blog the other day, okay? And he phrased it really well. You think about attacking, not spiking. Spiking is getting the perfect swing, getting the perfect attack. You know, it's good timing, all this stuff we talked about before. We want good timing, we want all that kind of stuff. But in a fast offense, it just isn't always possible. We want to think about attacking, not spiking. Spiking is this beautiful swing, and we want to teach our kids to do that. Perfect. But attacking is scoring points. Maybe you do it with a beautiful swing. Maybe you do it with something crazy. Okay. Fast offense always means we have flying blocks, and it means we have open blocks. So we can play with the hands and with the spaces. All right. Hands and spaces. Like their flying hands are the best thing to use. Boop, nobody can play defense. Okay. Excellent. All right. Some things that I start to talk about with my girls and that we start to slowly see in the games are power tips. We kind of throw the ball. Some people don't like it, but you know what? The men do it, so the women can too. Two-hand push, okay, wipes off a flying block. The opportunities are endless, and I love that there are so many players out there now that are really, really, we say, pushing the boundaries. I think it's amazing, okay? So creating range is that classic range, super important. We always work on it, and we want our hitters to be able to do it all, but you don't need a good swing, and here are some examples. All right, some power tips. Bam. Okay, throw the ball down. Basically, we get our feet in the court, okay, and we're able to extend and we're able to push the ball. All right. I understand that it's quite controversial, but it's done at a high level, especially in the men's a lot, and it is starting to come into the women's. Okay, wipe. This is really, really, really good on a fast offense because you see here with this girl, she's reaching out because we beat her with speed. Her hands are out, and all we have to do is follow the flight of the ball to wipe it off. So these wipes for me on a fast offense, especially in this situation where we have a right-handed opposite, for example, we just follow the ball. Okay, boop, we drag it with us. And it's so difficult to stop this ball. And this is really good on a fast offense. Okay, this made me the happiest person in the world. I was watching 2 days ago. This is a game from 2 days ago in Skandici against Reshov. And I saw for the first time a female using a two-handed attack. Okay, in the men's in Poland, if you're watching a lot lately, look at this, feet are in the ball, jump up and boom, two hands. Why not? You know, we need to score. And this is a way to score. And I just love when players are innovating. Okay. Like I just talked about Poland, Kubiak. Okay. This is a guy that he's innovating and he's trying different attacking methods. Okay. Or fast offense. They play fast, they give him a chance, and he plays with the block. So for this, creating range, he's a guy to watch because his range is endless. He can hit everywhere. He can hit high, he can hit low, he can hit sharp, he can hit line, he can wipe, he can double hand, he can power tip, he can dunk, he does everything. And how in the world can you block and defend him? And so when you run a fast offense, this range is even more available to you because you have flying hands and open blocks. All right, that's it from me. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciated the chance to talk about the thing that I love the most in volleyball.
Lauren, thank you very much for sharing with us your experience and your knowledge. There are some questions for you.
Perfect.
Okay, the first one is, what's the important factors do you analyze from the opponent's game to establish the defensive plan of your team?
The opponent game for the defensive plan of my team. Okay, so we will do a scout of the opposition attack. So we make heat maps. I don't have an example already, I'm sorry, but we make heat maps to see where the attackers attack. And we pretty much like to sit our defenders in there. And those heat maps also show us if we want to block line or we want to block cross. So we do that for each individual attacker. And also we check a little bit the rotations and the setter tendencies. So everything I'm talking about now that we want to do, we check for the opposition setter. Okay, what are their tendencies? Do they play overloads, isolates? Do they play long balls or short balls? Maybe in this rotation, they use a lot of this player. So we want to step with their middle, or do we not want to step? So yeah, for the most part, to create a defensive plan, I'm looking at those two things.
Thank you. And another question is, how should the hitter adapt his or her execution according to the setter location? Move the right or the left? Yep. Example, hitter in the 4 position and setter close or away.
Yep. So yeah, I touched on it before, but so we talked about this optimal timing in a fast offense. And if you're in a, a normal ball, a normal situation, we want to be maybe coming off the second step. So for a position 4 ball. So then if the setter is running to position 4, they're on a shift to 4. Obviously, if we keep the same speed, it's going to be a faster set. And I want to keep the same speed because I want to create space. So then in that case, we will find that the hitter should be on their 3rd step. They would be stepping on their 3rd step with their feet in the court. And you trust that the setter is going to get the ball there. In the other way, if it's longer and the ball is going to take a longer time, then maybe you're on a soft 2nd step. So you're not fully on the 2nd step, but you're getting onto your 2nd step. So they adjust the timing by adjusting the sets. In my plan, we keep the same speed, and the hitter goes or faster onto his next step or slower on their last step.
And another question is how you give, based in your experience, of course, how you give to the speed from the setter to the attackers to your team, and how you prepare the defense to face that kind of speed at this moment.
So how I prepare the defense to face a speed like my speed, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cross the finger. No, I joke. No. I mean, so first we want to see if there's a tendency. So, you know, if you watch my team, I know for sure there is a tendency that we will play more to the outside attackers. So a lot of opposition blockers for us will take steps towards our outside attackers. So I'm going to check first for that, because if there's some tendency in this situation that the setter does this, then it gives us a chance to react earlier. Again, otherwise, I mean, for us, it's great to play against the speed in our practice because our blockers kind of get used to this speed. But yeah, we have to learn how to play different block moves, like off a 2-step block move and things like this. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Lauren. And on behalf of the Venezuelan Volleyball Federation and the Venezuelan Olympic Committee, we thank you for staying with us, being here. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Bye.
Mauro, sé que con esta presentación cerramos el ciclo de esta tarde y los invitamos cordialmente al día de mañana.
Exactamente. Mañana tenemos un gran día, ¿no? de nuevo en la mañana con la parte de playa. Estarán Martín Press de Austria, José María Padrón, quien fue el referee en el femenino de la final de los Juegos Olímpicos de Río, Y estaremos también con una ponencia muy buena de Dalton Lima, quien es doctor en ciencias del deporte. Nos hablará de la fatiga mental en el voleibol de playa. Mañana es la última ponencia, las últimas ponencias, tanto de playa como de cancha. Y pues tenemos en la tarde a Luca Critofani y a Daniel Castellani, ¿no? Creo que la de Alois Marín ya se realizó. No sé si falta algún otro ponente, William, mañana.
Teníamos aquí a Fernando Muñoz.
Ah, Fernando Muñoz, cierto.
De España.
Sí, entonces Fernando Muñoz, Lucas Cristofani, que hubo un cambio con Pascualino Giangrossi, y Daniel Castellani serían. También hablarán de buenas temáticas. El caso de Fernando Muñoz hablará de la defensa, técnicas y conceptos. En el caso de Daniel Castellani hablará del entrenamiento del saque con salto, y Lucas Cristofani, quien cambió para ver, hablará del desarrollo de los sistemas de bloqueo desde la categoría juvenil hasta el voleibol mayor. Así que no se lo pierdan mañana. Estamos completando estas jornadas con mucho éxito, con muchas visibilidades a través de redes sociales. Y nuevamente agradecer a todos los que han contribuido para que esto se haga realidad, tanto Comité Olímpico Venezolano, Federación de Voleibol, tanto los moderadores, a todos los ponentes que han sacado de su tiempo para poder dar un granito de arena y que esto se haga una realidad. De verdad que hacer como coincidir tantos ponentes en un evento es bastante complicado, y en dos idiomas, ¿no? En español y en inglés. Así que estamos celebrando algo bastante importante que se está ejecutando. Así que agradecidos por la asistencia de hoy, y nos vemos mañana a la misma hora, a las 9 de la mañana comienzan las ponencias con playa, y a las 2 de la tarde comienzan las ponencias con la sala. Así que un abrazo para todos y que tengan feliz sábado donde quiera que se encuentren. Un abrazo.
Hasta mañana.